Hello and welcome to the Awesome 180 channel. I am Ashton Doctor, your habit coach, and today's video is gonna definitely trigger some of you. It's gonna be a heated topic because we're gonna be talking about veganism, vegetarianism, non-vegetarianism, this movie called Gamechangers, all of it combined. And the point of this video is to understand which aspect of what I'm about to say is gonna trigger you. Why are we not understanding everything and doing our own research and understanding something in totality? And why are we only looking at slivers of something and then becoming very protagonistic about it, very anxious about it, it is only this way, it is no other way. So as human beings, we have the ability to eat so many different kinds of food. And that is called the omnivore's dilemma. In fact, I have a book here somewhere, right here. It's called the omnivore's dilemma. And what happens is that a tiger doesn't wake up in the morning and wonder what it's going to eat. It knows that it's going to eat something with meat on it. It doesn't suddenly go and say, no, I will have a chapati today. And if you do feed a tiger chapati, they get sick. The same way, a zebra doesn't wake up in the morning and say, today I'm going to eat a monkey, or today I'm going to eat a giraffe. No, it knows exactly what it's going to eat. But the problem with humans is that we have the ability to eat meat, we have the ability to eat vegetables. And this is where we get torn. Most of you who follow me know that I'm a hardcore non-vegetarian. I love my meat and I think about meat in a very important manner, which is understanding the nutrients that it's giving me and understanding it from a protein perspective. Now, when I saw the movie Gamechangers, I too was very intrigued by it. And I said that, all right, let me try experimenting with it because it's important to look at different ways of understanding your nutrition. And from that day onwards, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I started eating only vegetarian or vegan food. And that was extremely hard because what I realized was every time I went out to eat a meal, either I was getting grains, which are like rice or wheat, or I was getting pulses, or I was getting potatoes. There were no real vegetables. If you're a vegetarian, you should be eating vegetables. And that's how I typically like to eat. I like to eat a lot of vegetables. I often share this with people on Instagram. I don't know if you're following me there, but you must. And my plate typically looks like this. If this is my plate, almost 75% of what I eat are vegetables. Good quality, green, colorful vegetables. The remaining part is the protein. Very often when we think about non-vegetarian food, we think about people only eating meat. The understanding is that you're eating a little bit of meat, but mostly vegetables, and that's actually a healthy way of approaching your food. Very often when I put up my plate with non-vegetarian food on it, I get a lot of messages from people saying that, why are you not turning vegan? Think about the karma that you're doing. Think about the environment. Think about your health. And unfortunately, I want to now start breaking these myths because there is a certain relationship that you have with your food, and understanding where that's coming from is very important. So the first argument that most vegans and vegetarians give is about that the poor animal is feeling pain when you're killing it, or it's feeling pain, but plants are okay. Now, you have to read a couple of books. One of the first books is called The Secret Life of Plants. And the next story I'm about to tell you is very scary. When I started reading it, I started getting goosebumps. Okay? So the scientist did an experiment. He attached the galvanic skin response meter, which is basically a meter that is used in the lie detectors that measures the way that your skin reacts. And they put it and he connected that up to a plant. What he did next was he had someone come in and pluck a leaf from the plant. The plant from normal suddenly went haywire, as if it was in pain. Okay, the needle started moving randomly. After a couple of hours, the plant settled down. Another person walked into the room. The plant did not move. It stayed the same. The needle stayed the same. Now, as soon as the person who had plucked the leaf walked into the room, the plant started going crazy. It started going bananas. The person hadn't touched the plant a second time. He just walked into the room. Now tell me, do you feel that plants don't feel pain? What is it? Just because we do not understand the way that they feel pain doesn't mean that they don't. So one of the interesting things that they did was that they took a forest and they put a stimulus at one end of the forest, and they noticed that all the plants communicated with each other and it reached the other end of the forest. So somebody chopping wood at one end, the other plants at the other end of the forest started reacting to it. Now tell me plants don't feel. Just because they can't move, just because they can't scream, doesn't mean that plants don't feel. Okay? The next thing I want to talk about is from another fantastic book called The Plant Paradox. And you must read this book, especially if you're a vegetarian. Now, why is this book so important? Because it talks about how plants defend themselves. Now, as you know, as animals have horns, animals have fangs, teeth, claws, legs. They can run away, they can fight. But what does a plant do? So the plants have developed a fantastic mechanism of poisoning. So there are these plant proteins called lectins that start and affect the host body. So imagine if you eat a plant and you suddenly start feeling sick. That is what a lectin does to you. Now, a lectin can cause inflammation in the body. It can cause something called leaky gut. It can kill you in certain situations. And more importantly, it can also damage your reproductive system. A few examples of lectins that we're all familiar with is the most famous gluten, right? People know about gluten sensitivity, etc. Gluten is a lectin. And there are categories of plants that don't want to be eaten, but us as human beings have figured out how to eat them. So we do eat them. So these categories are grains, category are squash like cucumbers, pumpkins, etc. Nightshade vegetables, which are your potatoes, eggplants, tomatoes, chilies, and even certain kinds of fruits. So how does this work? There are certain plants that want to be eaten for their seeds to be dispersed, and there are certain plants that don't want to be eaten. So let me give you a few crazy examples of this. Did you know that there was a popular diet called the kidney bean diet? It wasn't popular for too long because a lot of people who started this died. Okay, so it was something I think the Japanese started where you have to eat raw kidney beans, and people started dying because of these lectins in them. Another example is that people started adding raw dudhi or bottle gourd to their juices. So they started having raw dudhi juice and they started dying as well. So it's very important to understand that all vegetables are not just out to be goody with us. Try going and eating any plant that you see on the road and see what happens to you. You will fall sick. There are only a few kinds of plants that we can eat. The purpose of me telling you all this is so that you understand that there are different sides to a story. Not all plants are good for us. Not all meat is good for us. And we have to understand how to consume it. I'll give you another example. I know some of the most staunch vegans who are very unhealthy. Why? Because veganism doesn't equal to health. A vada pav or French fries is still vegan. A cupcake is vegan. So just because you're a vegan doesn't mean that you automatically become healthy. It's still about making those healthy choices. So instead of moving through this whole thing of vegetarianism, non-vegetarianism, and saying that this is the right way, this is the wrong way, it's important for us to understand that this is a completely personal choice. You choose to be vegetarian, you choose to be a non-vegetarian. Both are healthy, both are unhealthy, both are affecting the environment, both are not affecting the environment in a certain way. There are different sides to this story. So for example, we talk about farmed animals. It is scary how animals are being farmed. It is scary how animals are being treated. Of course it is. But where did as human beings we get the idea of farming from? We got it from the way we grow vegetables. That's how we do farming. So vegetables are also grown in a scary way. If you actually see the way that vegetables are grown, there's no biodiversity, so there is absolutely no minerals and nutrients coming into these plants that we're eating. It's very similar to the way chickens are grown. And what's important is that both are ethically wrong if you're going to be fair about the ethics of it all. Why should we be farming at all? So your habit coach pro tip is to show tolerance and to do research. You have to study everything that you're eating. Don't just take things at face value. I keep giving these references of these books so that you can actually go and check them out because they're a fascinating read and there's so much to learn from them. So in the scheme of things, we've discussed a lot in this video. I know it's going to be a longish video, this one. But what's important is how we choose to eat. If you're going to be vegetarian, please eat vegetables. Eat lots of organic vegetables. So we know that they've been farmed well. We've not been using pesticides, we've not been using fertilizers to grow them. The second is that if you're going to be a vegetarian and a non-vegetarian, the non-vegetarian part you have to think about as well. Where is your meat coming from? One of the things I do is I eat a lot more eggs because I know I can control the quality of eggs. We get a lot of free-range chicken eggs and eggs are a power-packed nutrient source for you. So eggs should definitely be part of your diet if you're a non-vegetarian. So your habit of the week is to try different forms of diets. If you're a vegetarian, move away from the typical meals that you eat and explore different forms of vegetarianism. So there's something called a paleo approach. There's something called an anti-inflammatory approach. Learn about those and experiment with it. If you're a non-vegetarian, try being vegetarian for 2 days. See how that feels. If you're vegetarian, try being vegan. So this week, I just want you to experiment with your food. Try different kinds of foods. And hence break down this whole rigid structure that we have that you should only be vegetarian, you should only be non-vegetarian. If you found this video helpful, share this with friends of yours, because I know that discussions about vegetarianism and non-vegetarianism is something that all of us as friends have, and even us as family members have. It's important to know which sides we stand on. Ultimately, it's an ethical choice, and that's the point I want to make. It is your ethical choice. Don't force it on someone else. Don't forget to hit subscribe and press that little bell icon on the side so that you're aware when future videos come up. I'm Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And remember, awesome lives start with awesome habits.